Welcome to the Study On podcast. I'm your host, Angie Bauman, and I am passionate about Bible study. Friend, my journey has not been an easy one. I am a trauma and abuse survivor, and I still walk with a limp. But I also walk in freedom because as I've studied God's Word, He has released me from layers of shame and invited me into a life filled with an abundance of His peace, joy, rest, and hope. I'm transformed because I study the Bible, and my heart's desire is to create offerings that help you get and stay in your Bible so you experience that transformation too. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me. Maybe it's as you enjoy your coffee or with pen and notebook ready, or you're driving to work or walking the dog from wherever you are in your day. Let's dive deep into a verse of scripture together. So we walk steady on. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friend. Welcome in today. We are continuing in a series in which we are unpacking the 16 characteristics of love outlined by the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. And today we're going to explore the fourth characteristic: love does not brag. And I'm by myself today. It has been a minute since I have done a solo podcast episode. I'm going to tell you something, and that is I have decided to stop the guest interviews altogether. But I've been dropping a lot of them over the past couple of months because I had a little backlog of guest interviews, and I wanted to honor all of those recordings and interviews and commitments. But I'm pretty much to the end of that now. And so you'll be hearing all episodes dedicated to step by step. And right now you'll hear all episodes dedicated to these words from 1 Corinthians 13, 4 to 8. And I'm so excited to just be getting a little bit more narrow focused. Is that how we would narrow focused with the podcast? And so I just want to always just jump on here and say thank you for listening. Thank you for spending some of your time with me as we study together. Thank you for reaching out and encouraging me when something encourages you. It's a delight. It's a delight to study with you and to share space with you. And so I'm just so glad that you're here. And I'm kind of just a little bit glad it's just me and you today. So as you probably know, I published a Bible study on these verses in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 to 8 last December, and the study is called Love Never Fails, and it was the first study that we journeyed through in Study On University, and the learning there was so fabulous, and I decided that I wanted to drop some of the things that I learned and that the ladies shared as we learned together here in the podcast. So if you'd like to study along with me today, and I hope that you do, you will find links to a study sheet and the step-by-step masterclass videos. There are 2 videos. It takes about 20 minutes to watch them both. And all of that information is in today's show notes. Alrighty, my friend, here we go. We are in 1 Corinthians 13, 4, and it says in the NASB 1995, love is patient, love is kind and is not jealous, love does not brag, and is not arrogant. Information about the book of 1 Corinthians. The author is the Apostle Paul. The audience is the Church of Corinth. The date of the writing is around AD 53 to 55. Chapter 13, where we are hanging out today, has 13 verses. It is a chapter on agape love. If you'd like to have a definition or an unpacking of agape love and you have not yet heard the introduction episode for this series, go back a few episodes and click on the one with Katie Mason. And in that episode, you will find just that like deep dive on what agape love is, because agape love is what we're talking about with these characteristics. So we're focusing in with the characteristics in verses 4 through 8. That is Paul's description of love. And he writes about things that love is and things that love is not. We're in a not episode today. One more time. Love is patient. Love is kind and is not jealous. Love does not brag and is not arrogant. Step 1 in the Bible study method is to choose our word. And our word today is brag, because we are focusing on love does not brag. And our word is brag. A definition of brag is to boast, to talk with excessive pride about what one has, is able to do, or has done. It is often an attempt to popularize oneself. Is anybody ouchy already? It's often an attempt to popularize oneself. Some synonyms to brag are things like crow, swagger, gloat, vaunt, or exult. Some antonyms or opposites to brag are things like conceal, hide, underplay, be modest, be quiet, reduce, decrease. So here's the thing that I'm going to point out that I learned as I was first studying this deeply, and that is just kind of as we move through this today, keep in mind that excessive talk about what we have done, what we have built, what we have accumulated, what we have accomplished, any of those things, it is erecting, constructing an idol, right? Or it's pointing to the fact that we have already erected or constructed an idol. When we are so obsessive about or focused on the thing, whatever the thing in our life happens to be, we are worshiping that thing that we created or that we give ourselves credit for creating, and we are ignoring the true creator through which all gifts, all blessings, all resources come, right? So we're like praising ourselves or our accomplishments instead of praising the one who has created us to be able to accomplish. And I just think that's a really important thing that I am learning, and hopefully that lands well and serves you well also. Okay, step 2 in the step-by-step Bible study method is called investigate. We divide that up into 4 parts. Part 1 is to compare our word in other translations. And again, I say this often, the reason that it's fun and important to compare the word in other translations is because the Bible was not written in English. The New Testament was written in Greek. And so a lot of times a translator will go in and find a different English word, choose a different English word to explain the word in Greek. And so it's just interesting to kind of walk all the way around it and see how different translators communicate this word from the Greek language. Okay. In the King James 21, it's vaunteth. The Amplified Classic, boastful or vainglorious. Darby, insolent and rash. The DRA, dealeth not perversely. The Easy Translation, proud. Again, these are nots, right? Love is not proud. Love is not boastful or vainglorious. The GW, it doesn't sing its own praises. How does that land with you, right? It doesn't sing its own praises. And when you go back to those antonyms, it is quiet about her own accomplishments, right? That's what love is, quiet about her own accomplishments. The G&T, love is not conceited. The ISV, arrogant with pride. The Phillips translation, I liked this one. I highlighted this in my notes. It says, anxious to impress. Love is not anxious to impress. When we are anxious to impress, let's pause right here for a second. When we are anxious to impress, it indicates an insecurity. And an insecurity indicates that we are trying to find our worth in something other than Christ. I think that's really important for us to know. That's a real check in my spirit for me. When I feel the need to boast about something, when I feel the need to brag, or when I'm anxious to impress someone else with my accomplishments, it's really because I feel like their approval of me, oh, this is ugly, their approval of me or their respect of me, or even sometimes even uglier, their admiration of me, this is just yucky. Their choice to place me as even higher than themselves because they're impressed with me. All of that comes from the uckiness of wanting my approval or my worth to come from the world and others in the world instead of believing what Christ already says about me, that I am accepted and loved and beloved and a chosen daughter of his, not based on what I'm building or accomplishing, but because he says so, right? So it's just this little check in our spirit. It can be. Okay, some more words from other translations. The JUB does nothing without due reason. The Message says love doesn't strut. The MEV flaunts. Love doesn't flaunt. The NABRE, pompous, is not pompous. The NCB, didn't like this one also, inflated opinion of itself. So you put that together with the Phillips. Love is not anxious to impress because it carries around an inflated opinion of itself, right? Ouchie, ouchie. The New King James says parade itself. Love does not parade itself. The NLV put itself up as being important. The NMB is not contrary. The NTFE makes no fuss. The Voice, brag or strut around. And then finally, the WYC doeth not wickedly. Yikes. So as I'm recording this, we've had just an amazingly fun event happen in our house just last night. So my younger son, Josh, who actually will be my guest here on the podcast in 2 weeks. He's never been on the podcast before, and he decided that he wanted to do one of these episodes with me as well. But just last night, Josh shot a personal best golf in a match. You can tell golf is not my language. Josh plays on the high school golf team. He is quite a good little golfer. And he actually won his match last night with a personal best of 38 on the front. I think it was the front nine of our home golf course. He shaved off 3 strokes from his personal best and took the medal in the match. He is 14 years old. He is a freshman. Everybody was kind of laughing at him. He weighs like 105 pounds, maybe, right? This little guy. And he went out there and he just killed it on the golf course. And he's a good golfer, but like I said, he was just totally in his zone last night. And he was interviewed by our local paper. And yeah, and of course, Matt put something on Facebook, and there was just so many wonderful comments and people just kind of praising Josh and cheering him on. And I share all that because it is tempting, is it not, to want to parade that, to want to shout that from the rooftops, to want to get caught up in even Josh's success, as if I have anything to do with it. I don't even know the language. I haven't taught him anything. I've created some space for him to explore something that he's interested in, but it doesn't have anything to do with me. But so often we can get caught up in something like that. And as a woman who wants so much to model and to be what Jesus is calling me to be in my parenting, in to have a reputation of someone who loves the Lord and submits to him, there's this balance, is there not, of being able to celebrate and honor my child's success and just kind of just have a moment where we're just so dang stinking proud of Josh and what he's done and look at him in the paper and all that, but not letting that take root at all, not allowing the enemy to plant any seeds of needing his accomplishment to define me. It's a slippery slope, is it not? And we all know parents, of course, nobody listening here, but we all know parents who have such investment in their child's accomplishment. And this is only one place we can do it, right? But we know parents that have such an investment in their child's accomplishment that we don't want to hear it, right? We can't actually celebrate about that with them because it's bragging, and it just feels like it's being sort of like either thrown in our face or shoved in our face, or just something that's like placed upon us, and it's heavy and it feels kind of gross and yucky. And so again, how do I create space and opportunity for a well-deserved celebration for hard work and taking a risk and going out there and just doing really well, and not creating an idol of that, or not creating any kind of sense in my son that golf and his ability to play golf has any influence or impact on his identity as a child of God, right? It's kind of slippery. It's slippery. Okay, let's move on. Step 2 in the investigate part 2, is to research the original word. And the Strong's number, if you like to know it, is G4068. And this is a mouthful, but I'm going to try. In the Greek, it's pronounced Perperaumi. I know it. I'm sure it's nothing like that. Perperaumi, I believe, is something close to how it's pronounced. But it means, this I do know, it means to boast or to vaunt, to make a vain display of oneself. To boast or to make a vain display of ourselves, to put ourselves on display. That's what this word means. The Theological Dictionary of the New Testament says this about this Greek word: bluster, or blowing in strong or sudden gusts; superfluity, or an overflowingness; futility, useless; and presumption, venturing beyond due bounds of respect, coupled with sloth or laziness. Now, that was a lot of words, but listen to it again. This is how it's describing this word: a bluster or blowing in sudden gusts, overflowing with useless laziness. Now, that's just a bunch of grossness. And why laziness? Well, I think it's because instead of allowing our reputation and our small acts of goodness and kindness and the fruit of the spirits, and instead of allowing that over time to speak for us about who we are, we're trying to hurry that up by pointing to accomplishments. And that's like taking a shortcut, right? And anytime we take a shortcut, it points to laziness. That's hard to read. That we're just blowing and overflowing with useless, outside the bounds information, idle erection that's actually laziness. It's a lazy way to have a God-honoring reputation. Yikes, yikes, and more yikes. Okay, part 3 of the investigate step is to read some commentary. Here's what the Enduring Word says. And as always, you can find all the resources that I use to put an episode together in the show notes. From the Enduring Word: love does not have to have the limelight or the attention to do a good job, or to be satisfied with the result. Love gives because it loves to give, not out of the sense of praise it can have from showing itself off. The Enduring Word goes on to say, sometimes the people who seem to work the hardest at love are the ones the furthest from it. They do things many would perceive as loving, yet they do them in a manner that would parade itself. This isn't love. It is pride, looking for glory by the appearance of love. So what I was just talking about with Josh and his golf game, that's one way that we can parade ourselves. Another way that we can parade ourselves is by doing good deeds and then demonstrating like what I would call a false humility, right? Like, oh, I have to do this or this or this, or, oh, I can't do this because someone needs this and I'm going to take care of it. But our motivation for taking care of it isn't actually love. It's so that others can see the things that we're taking care of. So that's a different way to construct an idol. That's a different way to brag, right? When I can't do anything in quiet, I can't serve someone, I can't give money, I can't share my spiritual gifts unless everyone knows about it. Yucks. That's kind of a different kind of yucky bragging, right? The commentary, Critical and Explanatory on the Whole Bible, that's the commentary I love to use but hate to say because the title is so long. It talks about, I'm going to paraphrase what it says because it is talking about not bragging, meaning that even the gifts that we actually possess, even the accomplishments we actually have done, that Paul is rebuking the church at Corinth with this, love does not brag, because they're using those gifts or those accomplishments merely for display. So he's just challenging us, like I was just saying, he's challenging us to say, even when you're doing good things, if you're doing good things so that they can be seen, that's not love, and it's actually not a good thing at all. The Faith Life Study Bible says that this refers to the desire to obtain adoration or acknowledgement from others by explaining to others your own self-worth, usually without them asking to know about it. I think that's a clue, is it not? That is such a clue. Are we sharing something about ourselves, our accomplishments, our good deeds, and nobody asked us to share, right? This is not like friend to friend explaining a place where God has called you to do something and you've done it. Or like after Josh's golf game the other night, I texted Lisa Maria and I'm like, listen, can I brag about my kid for just a minute? And I sent them the pictures of him talking to the local paper and the little write up and just was like, this is so crazy, ladies, right? And they were just like, no, bring it on. We want to celebrate this with you. Well, I can do that with those close friends because they want to celebrate something with me. And those are friends that wouldn't let me allow that to go to my head anyway, right? So it's not that there's no place to share accomplishments, yours or your kids or somebody else's, whatever. It's not that there's no place for that. But are we doing that to impress others and to parade ourselves when no one's really asked us to share that part of our lives that way? That's a clue. Okay, one more. This one's an ouchie one too, from Richard L. Pratt Jr. He writes, this meaning seems to be, quote, bragging without foundation. And there's another little hint too. When we are tempted to exaggerate. Anybody? I've been in that situation before where I want to impress someone. And so maybe something was good, but if I just added or subtracted a little something to it, then it would be even better and maybe more impressive. And so perhaps I'm actually offering information that is without foundation. Ew, yuck and more yuck. Okay, part 4 in the investigate step is to rewrite the verse in our own words. And I'm just going to focus on the love does not brag. And I rewrote it like this. Love does not parade loving acts in hopes of impressing others. And I'm going to add, just because I was talking about Josh and his golf game, aren't you glad that you know so much about Josh's golf game last night? But love does not parade loving acts or accomplishments in hopes of impressing others. All right, step 3 is define characteristics of God. These are the ones that stood out to me. I put that God is pure. His love for me has no self-promoting agenda. His love for me has no self-promoting agenda. I also put that he is my defense. Why? Because when I feel like I need affirmation from others, and we are all going to feel that way in certain places because we'll feel a little insecure. Just there's this opening to somebody has said something and we think we can one up them. Oh, we all do that sometimes. And when I feel, God is my defense, right? Because when I feel I need affirmation from others, when I feel like I need to impress others, I can hightail myself to his shelter, right? And feel his affirmation that will satisfy me. And the quickest way to do that is with praise. When I feel tempted to inflate myself or to parade myself, what will ground me the fastest and send me to his affirmation is to offer thanksgiving and praise to him. And that's so easy to do. All we need to do is take a quick inventory of my life, probably even in the thing we want to brag about. If we're just honest about the fact that God has given us whatever degree of grace that he has given us so that we can have the thing we have that we're tempted to boast about, right? If we just turn that into praise, it will squelch, it will serve as our defense, and it will squelch our need to toot our own horn. Okay, step 4 is identify the lie of the enemy. And we do this because it's really important to call out what makes it hard to live in Christ's example in this particular area, whatever we're studying. And here's what I've found as significant to me as a lie that the enemy can tell me in this area. And that is, if you don't point out your acts of love or accomplishment, others will miss them. And here's the ouchie, they will not give you the credit you deserve. And how many times in our hurry to be affirmed have we needed to share our accomplishments because we will not trust that God will bring us the credit we deserve when the time is right? It is a beautiful thing to be patient. We talked about that already a couple of weeks ago with Haley and Susie. I talked about love being patient. It is a beautiful gift to be able to be patient and to let God bring accolades or credit or thanks or praise in the timing that He knows you and others need it. And that could be never, and that could be tomorrow, but to trust Him that He will unfold that in the time that He knows is best. Okay, let's finish up together. This has been so fun. A little ouchy, but fun. Step 5 in the method is called So What? That's where we make note of a key takeaway. And mine for today is this. Watch, Angie. Watch where you are tempted to share your good deeds and ask yourself what motivates you to do so. I would love to hear your takeaway. You can email me anytime at steadyonpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to hold the Love Never Fails study in your little hands as we travel through these characteristics of love, you can buy the workbook on Amazon, and that link is in the show notes today, of course. If you'd like to be a part of Community Bible Study, I encourage you to check out Steady On University. Have you looked at what Steady On University is yet? It is awesome. We are doing some amazing connecting, fellowship, and study in there. And I would just encourage you to take a look at the link in the show notes and just learn a little bit more. I would love to get to know you and study with you and have you as a part of SOU. You're going to love it if you try it. You will not be disappointed. And if for some reason you are disappointed, you can email me and I'll give you your money back. If you have not yet, I would be so grateful if you would subscribe to the podcast on whatever directory you use to listen. It only takes a second, and it guarantees you will receive every episode. And if someone came to mind as you were listening, I would love it if you would share this episode with them. Inviting them into what we're doing here is another great way to support the show. Thank you again for listening. I pray wherever your day takes you, you're walking in the confident knowledge that you are a beloved, cherished child of God. Peace.